Welcome to this explainer on the clinical evaluation of dietary testosterone supplements. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here today. Look, if you've ever stared at a supplement label and wondered what actually works, what's purely just marketing hype, and what might actually be dangerous, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're auditing the massive commercial dietary testosterone supplement market, and we're putting it up against rigorous, peer-reviewed clinical literature. We're going to objectively demystify this entire industry, relying entirely on the data, without taking any sides.
We're taking a strict clinical hierarchy approach for this. Here's our roadmap. We'll start with number 1, physiology and market realities. Then 2, foundational minerals and vitamins. 3, high-evidence botanicals. 4, obscure and emerging botanicals. 5, modulators and ineffective compounds. And finally, number 6, stacking dynamics and safety.
So let's jump right into section 1. Physiology and market realities. Unregulated claims versus biological facts.
Okay, let's dive into this. To understand how any of these supplements work, you absolutely have to understand your biological baseline. The hypothalamic-pituitary-gonadal, or HPG axis, is essentially the command center. It's the neuroendocrine network that regulates your hormones, signaling to the Leydig cells in the testes to convert free cholesterol into endogenous testosterone. Now, we know this process naturally declines as we age, but because dietary supplements aren't regulated like pharmaceuticals, manufacturers often completely ignore these biological realities in favor of, well, really aggressive marketing.
Get a load of this data, because it really highlights the alarming regulatory deficit we're dealing with. Researchers looked at 109 unique ingredients across 50 of the top commercial supplements. Keep in mind, 90% of these products explicitly claim to boost testosterone, but the literature? It shows that only 24.8% of the ingredients have any statistical data showing an increase. Even crazier, 10.1% of them actively decrease testosterone, meaning you are literally paying money to lower your own hormone levels. And the rest? Over 65% had zero data or absolutely no effect whatsoever.
And this lack of regulation leads straight to a massive toxicological hazard, which is the commercial market's more is better fallacy. 1,291%. That is the median dosage of vitamin B12 found in commercial boosters compared to the recommended daily allowance. This kind of extreme, supra-therapeutic dosing happens across the board with multiple ingredients. It presents an immediate health risk for consumers who just assume that because a product says natural on the bottle, it must be safe.
Which brings us to section 2, foundational minerals and vitamins, correcting the biological baseline.
So, the crucial takeaway here is that micronutrients serve as foundational cofactors. If you have a deficiency, correcting it is going to restore your natural production. Let's look at 4 essentials. Zinc, clinically dosed at 15 to 30 milligrams daily, inhibits aromatase. But push that over 40 milligrams and you're looking at severe copper loss. Magnesium, at 200 to 400 milligrams daily, lowers SHBG affinity to release free testosterone. But excess causes major GI distress. Boron, at 3 to 10 milligrams daily, acutely lowers SHBG. Though honestly, the long-term data on that is a bit conflicting. And finally, vitamin D3, at 1,000 to 4,000 IU daily, is absolutely essential for Leydig cells. But hear this loud and clear. If you are a healthy man with sufficient levels, taking more of these will not induce hyperandrogenemia. They simply restore you to your natural ceiling.
Let's look at the rest of this foundational tier. Notice vitamin B6 right at the top. Despite being incredibly popular in these formulas, the clinical data paradoxically shows it actually decreases circulating testosterone. It's a massive formulation error. Meanwhile, selenium, vitamin C, and vitamin E don't directly boost testosterone either. Instead, they serve strictly as vital antioxidant protections. They're defending your Leydig cells from oxidative stress and environmental toxicants so your machinery can actually function the way it's supposed to.
Moving up the hierarchy, we hit section 3, high-evidence botanical therapeutics, validated HBG interventions.
And this brilliantly illustrates the extracts that actually have robust, placebo-controlled human trials behind them. These 4 actively and safely manipulate your endocrine system. Ashwagandha, dosed at 300 to 600 milligrams daily, blunts ACTH and lowers the stress hormone cortisol. This allows your body to shift those saved precursors towards DHEA and testosterone. Fenugreek, also at 300 to 600 milligrams, acts as an incomplete 5-alpha reductase and aromatase inhibitor, basically trapping synthesized testosterone in your blood. Tongkat, at 200 to 600 milligrams, modulates SHBG affinity, drastically releasing free, biologically active testosterone. And Shilajit, dosed at 250 milligrams twice daily, provides powerful Leydig cell antioxidant defense and mitochondrial energy generation.
But, not all botanicals are created equal.
Let's move to Section 4, Obscure and Emerging Botanicals, the high-risk Wild West.
Please pay very close attention to these toxicological profiles, because some of these are downright scary. Fadogia agrestis shows severe testicular architectural distortion and is linked to human cases to heart failure. Bulbinatalensis demonstrates dangerous hepatorenal toxicity in rodent models. That means severe liver and kidney damage. Cistanche tubulosa is mechanistically promising, sure, but completely lacks human trials. Mucuna perennians contains L-dopa. Unregulated use carries a massive levodopa overdose risk, potentially causing permanent dyskinesia and psychiatric distress. And pine pollen? Well, it contains actual phytoandrogens, but they are immediately neutralized by your liver upon digestion, and it carries a massive anaphylactic risk. Just not worth it.
Now let's contrast those risks with some lesser-known, emerging botanicals that are generally safer, but admittedly still largely theoretical in humans. Cordyceps directly stimulates Leydig cell steroidogenesis. Safed muesli offers potent antioxidant defense, specifically for sperm plasma membranes. Royal jelly is actually fascinating. It has sex-specific modulation, aggressively protecting testosterone production in males under stress. Ginger increases luteinizing hormone and localized blood flow to the testes via nitric oxide. And lastly, Anacyclus pyrethrum has shown a prolonged modulatory effect on the HPG axis in animal models.
This takes us to Section 5, Modulators and Ineffective Compounds, the commercial illusions. So here's the thing. None of these commercial modulators boost raw testosterone directly. Instead, they manipulate your existing pool. L-carnitine L-tartrate upregulates the density of androgen receptors in your muscle tissue, making your body utilize testosterone better. Saw palmetto inhibits 5-alpha reductase, preventing the conversion to DHT. Stinging nettle competitively displaces androgens from SHBG. D-indolymethane, or DEM, modulates hepatic estrogen metabolism to protect against estrogen dominance. Apigenin acts as a nonsteroidal aromatase inhibitor, and forskolin directly stimulates adenylate cyclase, NCAMP, within the Leydig cells, bypassing the pituitary entirely.
Look at this stark contrast. On the left, we have the high-evidence reality, Ashwagandha, Fenugreek, Tongkat Ali, and Shilajit. These reliably alter hormonal parameters in clinical settings. But on the right, the ineffective myths and detrimental precursors, Tribulus terrestris, D-aspartic acid, maca, licorice, DHEA, and pregnenolone. Despite being in nearly every booster on the shelf, clinical data proves these offer absolutely no raw testosterone benefits for healthy men. And worse, compounds like licorice and high-dose D-aspartic acid can actively suppress your endocrine output.
Which brings us perfectly to our final section, stacking dynamics and safety, the more is better fallacy. I want you to really think about this question. Is compounding multiple endocrine-modulating ingredients actually a safe optimization strategy? Think about it. When you mix an aromatase inhibitor, an LH secretog, and a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor all together without any medical supervision, what is actually happening inside your body?
Well, the answer is severe pharmacological hazards. Endocrine modulation never, ever occurs in a biological vacuum. If you blindly stack these agents, things go wrong. Compounding zinc across multiple supplements causes severe neutropenia and copper loss. Overlapping high-dose magnesium initiates acute osmotic diarrhea. Exceeding vitamin B3 limits induces hepatotoxicity. Altering your DHT pathways with things like saw palmetto often results in severe sexual dysfunction, even if your total testosterone is technically higher. And stacking dopaminergic precursors like muciniprurians exponentially compounds the risk of permanent dyskinesia.
And that leaves us with this final, uncompromising clinical warning. The science is incredibly clear here. You can optimize your biology, but only through validated, isolated ingredients at precise clinical dosages. So my question to you is this. Based on everything we've explored in this explainer today, are you actually optimizing your endocrinology, or are you just playing a high-stakes game of chemistry with your own organs? Thank you so much for joining me. Stay curious and always, always follow the data.